I am feeling some kind of way about doing this video today. It's an AI video, and it's for us who are in the online education space, folks with coaching programs, whether it's one on one or group, folks with memberships, courses, micro tools, all the things. And the reason why I'm feeling some kind of way about doing this video is because I have not seen anyone say this. So I'm going to be the first. Hopefully, it will open up a conversation. The comments are open. My Instagram DMs are open. I'd love to hear your thoughts. All right, let's go. So I want to draw an analogy here, and if you see me looking down, I have notes because this is I'm drawing on multiple threads here, so bear with me. Because the analogy here is the line that I walk personally as a launch service provider between consultant and coach. And many of you also probably walk this line. For example, I have two kinds of clients that come to me: clients who have never launched anything before, and clients who have launched multiple times and are relaunching and want to ensure that this relaunch meets their goals, whatever those goals look like. And I often find that I have to walk the line between consultant and coach for these clients. So, consultant being, you don't know what to do. You don't know how else to analyze this data, what other questions to ask to get to the bottom of whatever issue this is. For the folks who are relaunching, whatever issue is pointing to, let's say, lower conversions, or for someone who's coming to me who's never launched anything before, like whatever issue is preventing us from nailing this messaging, right? Like, when folks don't have the skill set that I have to recommend actions. I have to tell them, hey, this is what I say we should do next based on this that I see here. What do you think? And so that is me prescribing an action and recommending an action based on my expertise, right? Based on the over 10 years that I've been doing this in this industry. But I also have to act as a coach, because sometimes my clients will get stuck. And I'll give you an example. Someone came to me. She was coming into coaching for the first time, still at her full-time job, but she was wanting to launch a group program. And we were well on our way. We were making good progress, but she stalled. And so I would check in with her. I'd be like, hey, where are you at with this that we talked about last week? And she would tell me she got busy, work got busy, the kids, like stuff with the kids came up, stuff with her husband came up. And then I'd check in week 2. Hey, where we at? Still busy. I'm like, okay. We're watching this because now you are delaying your own progress, right? Week 3, check in, still not done. So I'm like, okay, ma'am, we're gonna have a conversation on our next call, because there's something going on here that we need to address, because you're delaying your own progress and we need to figure out what's stopping you. So on the call, I'll say to her, hey, actually I said, this is a real example I'm using. I said, okay, so this is what I'm seeing. This is the pattern. Agree, disagree. She agreed with me. I said, beautiful. All right, that's the pattern. Why do you think this pattern is happening? And she'll give me all sorts of reasons. And then I'll say, okay, but what's the underlying thing underneath all of that? Take a second, breathe, think about it. What's underneath all of that? And in this case, what she came back with was she had taken a previous group coaching program. And in that program, they were supposed to have built a lead magnet, built a list, and the work that we were doing now would have benefited from her doing that. But she didn't. And so the voice in her head is now saying, you should have, you didn't, you're behind. And every time she sat down to do the actions that we both agreed she would do, that voice would get really loud. She'd feel really guilty, feel really stupid, feel really behind, to the point where she felt like overwhelmed by the work and by the task. And so she didn't take action. And my role as a coach in that moment is to say, and this is what, again, I actually did. I said, hey, yes, that happened, but you did the best with what information you had at the time. And now, how can we reframe this story that you're telling yourself so that it actually moves you forward? Because I pointed out to her that this is actually doing the exact same thing that you did in that group coaching program. You're repeating a similar mistake and actually compounding the mistake because you delayed your progress then, you're making it even worse now, and you're pushing yourself way behind where you should be because you're not taking action now. And so it's even worse than what it could be. So let's not do that. Let's not compound the mistake. How do you think we can reframe this in a way that will move you forward? And so we came up with a different story for her to tell herself. And that resulted in her starting to take action again. And that's my role as a coach, is to say, to take my consultant hat off, to stop at some point. I have to realize that there's a place for recommending actions and sharing strategies and doing the work for our clients. That's why we have done for you offers. But there is also a place for taking that consulting hat off, putting on my coaching hat, and say, hang on, you are stopping your own progress. Let's consider why that's happening. You are making this harder for yourself than it needs to be. What is going on here? And examine the stories, the mindset, the emotion, the state of being behind the strategies and actions and project plan. And I have to walk that line as a consultant and coach, because my people who come to me are typically not, they don't have my expertise. They don't, and even when they are well versed in marketing, it's oftentimes a situation where it's not as intuitive as it is for me. I don't often work with clients who are at my level of expertise or further than me. That's not always the case, particularly when it comes to launching evergreen funnels. Like they're experts in other things. It's very rare. It's probably like the 5% case. And I have before, but it's not usual. And so they come to me with a skills gap, an expertise gap that I have to fill as a consultant. I have to do the work and or help them, teach them, show them how to do the work, right? So with this client, as I was recommending certain actions and strategies, I would tell her, hey, this is why we're doing this. Do you understand? Can you explain to me why we are doing this? I'm acting as a teacher while acting as a consultant. I'm doing my skill set for her, but also teaching her along the way, right? And that's all encompassed in my consultant hat that I have on in that moment. But when I see something else going on, I have to take that hat off and put on my coaching hat. And I have to walk that line. And getting to the AI point of this video, I think that there's a similar line that anybody, any one of us who educates in this space, in any way, shape, or form, whatever kind of offer you have, membership, coaching program, course, micro tool, whatever, low ticket offer, whatever it is, we need to be very aware of walking this line with AI, and specifically with the kind of tools that we put inside of our programs. And this is the line that I'm talking about. The line between getting AI to do the job, to do the project, to do the task for our students, versus using AI to help them learn how to do the task themselves. Because there are two kinds of tools that I'm seeing in our space right now. There are, and coaches and course creators and everybody, like membership owners, all of our folks are creating these two kinds of tools indiscriminately. It's not like folks are sticking to one or the other, right? We are creating tools that do a job for our people. So for example, I've seen tools that help us to like do a specific job that we know how to do, but to do it faster, to do it easier, to help us to get to an answer more efficiently. and do not require any IP or framework from the creator. They solve a specific problem. So, for example, for those of you who know Jordan Gill from System Save Me, she has her Canva cleanup tool, right? This is a tool that she didn't necessarily have to put IP into per se. And even if she did, this is something that we could all go into Canva and do ourselves, right? Like, we know how to categorize our own photos. That is a skill set that we can figure out how to do, even if we come up with our own categories ourselves. And even if they're not the most efficient, this is something that we could do. However, what this tool does is make the process quicker, easier, more efficient, right? It doesn't require any extra learning on our behalf to reproduce that result. If we were supposed to do it ourselves, we could do it without the tool. It would just take longer and be harder and be more tedious and be annoying. But the second kind of tool I see us creating is the kind of tool that takes the IP out of our brains, takes our frameworks out of our brains, takes everything that we do, teach, learn, and puts it in a tool that gets our students to the result faster, easier, more efficiently, without teaching them the process. And that kind of tool is what I want to have us think more intentionally about. Because to me, that kind of tool is dangerous, bro. That kind of tool is dangerous. And I have a couple of reasons why, right? Reason number one, as I said, I'm looking down at my notes because this is important and I don't want to get it wrong. It's dangerous because we end up in this situation where our audience comes to us for that result, for that transformation, right? They come to us for whatever it is that we actually get them to on the other end. And in our industry, like, we know that in marketing, in messaging, if you can get your clients to the result faster, easier, more efficiently, with even greater results, amazing. Your offer sells itself, right? Like, that is the goal, is to make an offer that gets our people there faster, more easily, so they don't have to effort as much, right? But when we do that without teaching them how to get there, it becomes problematic, because then they are in a situation where they are unable to do a few different things. One, they are unable to evaluate what is good versus what is bad, because they never learned the framework or the methodology. Two, they are unable to adapt the answer that the tool gives them, the output that the tool gives them, to a different situation. So when the context changes, when they need to pivot in their business for whatever reason, when they need to change the messaging, they have to come back to the tool. They can't make the adaptation themselves. And then three, they can't function without that tool at all in doing this process and getting to this result. So now we are creating this dependence on a tool that they can't even evaluate whether or not that tool is working versus dependence on their own brains, and they know the framework so that they can evaluate whether or not it's working. And this is really insidious because, as I said, our clients come to us for the result, and they want to get to that result faster, easier, more efficiently, with even greater results, right? And so they will take the path of least resistance to get to that result, right? If they can skip over, and we've seen this all the time in the back end of our like dashboards and less like or communities and or course dashboards, all the things, right? If they can skip through lessons and get to whatever they deem the good part, right, then they can get to the result faster. That's the story they tell themselves. And I've been guilty of doing this a few times too. I get it. And so because they will always take the path of least resistance, even when we put the tool alongside our lessons or frameworks and we try to teach those in the ways that we have conventionally taught them, you know, like with our workbooks and our videos and or cheat sheets and blah, 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 blah. Even when we do that, they will skip that. and go straight to the tool. Why? Because they want the result. And so they never actually do the learning that will enable them to produce the result by themselves, evaluate any outputs that the tool gives, and also adapt the answers that the tool gives them to any scenario at all. So now we're in a situation where we have, in a lot of ways, done the fishing for our people instead of teaching them how to fish. We've handed them fishes instead of teaching them how to fish. And we've made them dependent on us and dependent on our tools. And I think that that is the sort of SaaS model of doing business, if you will. But a lot of SaaS up to this point has not been knowledge-based, has not been dependent upon the frameworks and methodologies of the people creating the SaaS products. But with AI, with generative AI, with the large language models that we are using currently, we get to integrate those frameworks, those methodologies, or IP into the system. And so it's a completely different kind of SaaS product that doesn't solve a technical implementation-based problem, but solves a creative and sort of mental framework kind of problem to get people to a result. And the even riskier part of this is that we are motivated to create these tools because we do, like, in all genuine honesty, we want to get our people to the result faster. We want them to have the result that they say that they want. And we've tried. That's the other thing. We've tried to get them this result in all of our methods before. And so we see these methods, processes, tools, ideas, systems, right? Whether that's a custom GPT or a coded micro tool that we vibe coded, or some kind of a like AI agent workflow, whatever that looks like, or Claude skills, whatever that is. We see these systems as ways to actually support our people because we've seen them struggle. We've seen them try and fail to get the thing that we were trying to teach them. And so we in trying to get them to the result, we don't realize, I don't think we realize that we are actually eliminating the learning part of this process and just getting them from, like, I don't know how to do this, to results. And now they don't have to learn how to do it. That's dangerous. Because when people don't learn, when people don't learn, they lose. And anyone can take advantage of someone who doesn't have knowledge. And that's not what we want for our people. It's not what we want for our people. We don't want them so dependent on us that they cannot achieve the result without the resources that we give them. That's not what we want. And I'm concerned. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm concerned about that because I want our clients and our students to be placed in positions where, yes, they get to the result faster. They get to the result with less effort. They get even greater results from our processes, but they learn too. They don't miss the actual absorption and brain workouts of taking our frameworks and our methodologies and working them over in their brains and applying them to their specific scenarios and reproducing those results. Like, that process is how we grow. Quite frankly, it's just how we grow. And so when you remove that process and our clients and students become unable to produce results without our tools, I think we create a future and an outcome that we actually don't really want for our people. And the really hard thing about this is that people trust us to create tools that will do these things for them. And so they don't even think very carefully about evaluating the output, and they don't value the learning. They don't value the process of doing the learning so that they can evaluate the output, because of their trust in us is so high. And so they turn their brains off, literally, inside of our offers. They don't engage with the frameworks and the methodologies and absorbing those things and learning them. And they just use the tool. And they get results because we put hard work into the tool, y'all. Like, I'm not saying y'all aren't creating great tools. We're not creating great tools, because I've created a couple. Like, that's not what I'm saying. We, like, our outputs are not half bad. I mean, a lot of them are really good. But we also know that AI cannot fully be trusted yet. And sometimes it outputs crap. And so our people, our students, our clients need to be able to evaluate when that happens. And they need to be able to transfer whatever output that they receive to different contexts and different situations, especially because the landscape of business is changing so quickly. And they need to be able to reproduce those things without reliance on a tool, even at a basic and fundamental level. And I think it's important for us to really think about the systems that we are creating to support their learning, not just the systems that we are creating to support their results. Because the learning is important. And if you remove it, you remove a business owner's capability to produce in their own life and business. You jeopardize and put at risk their ability to create revenue and create whatever outcome you're trying to get them to create health, create wealthy relationships, whatever that looks like for your people. You jeopardize their ability to create that very thing because you make it dependent not on them, not on their own like creative, innovative spark and desires, not on their own motivation, not on their own willpower, but you create this dependence on access to a tool. I hope you can see what I'm saying here. I looked up a couple of studies that would help us to think about this phenomenon, and I want to read these results for you all. In one study, and I'll put the references in the description as well. In one study, Turkish math students with an unguarded AI tutor, meaning the AI tutor didn't have instructions around how to support the students. It was literally just like prompting them with answers and like prompting them with giving them the answers, telling them exactly what to do. With an unguarded AI tutor, improved practice scores by 48%. So they were able to get the results. Their results improved by 48%. That's a significant improvement. However, when AI was removed for the exam, they performed worse than the students who never used the AI tutor at all. I think that's really telling. The result with the tool masked the absence of learning. They were not learning, and the tool made it look like they were. And then there's the famous MIT study that everybody was talking about a few months ago, Your Brain on ChatGPT. But I want to highlight this idea here of cognitive debt. Cognitive debt. Because participants using ChatGPT had reduced neural connectivity, reduced ability to recall the content of their own essays, and a lower sense of ownership. So they didn't even notice that actually, when you asked ChatGPT to write this essay for you, you were giving it no ideas. And of course, this is a very specific case, but I want you to see how ownership decreases and how investment decreases and or can decrease when your clients and your students are using these tools. And that then results in an inability to produce the same result or a similarly effective result on their own without the tool. because they were never invested in the creation of it in the first place. And when I say invested, I'm not talking about emotional investment, although that's a part of this. It's also a mental investment, a brain investment, like actual brain activity in the creation process. That investment was not there. And so when it came time for them to reproduce and say, hey, this is what my thing was about, they didn't remember. Never know. And it's a similar thing with our students, that our students are at risk for, that our clients are at risk for, because of that lack of mental investment in the learning of the thing. When it comes time to reproduce the results, they can't do that without the tool. And I think that there are upsides to this. I want to surface that, because I was talking with a friend recently, and she was talking about the fact that actually this could in a lot of ways be a good thing for two reasons. One is people can't copy you as much anymore because you're not teaching your frameworks inside of the offer anymore. You're not teaching them as in depth as you would put into the tool, and all of those like all of that IP is gated, so users cannot access it. Only the admin can, and so users have a less of an opportunity to copycat your stuff. And this friend, that's particularly important for her because she gets copycatted a lot in her industry because she is very fortunately at the top of her industry, but that means everybody looks at her stuff and just like literally copy paste the names of her launch events, the names of her programs, the names of her tools. It's ridiculous, y'all. It's actually stupid. Stupid ridiculous. And so she recognized that as a pro, and I agree with her. This is true. This is very true. You can't discount that. The second thing here that's a pro for this is that what it results in, that stickiness, that thing where people need the tool and people depend on it, let's just be real. That's more revenue for us. I'm going to just say it. That does equal more money for us because they have to pay us every month to use a dang tool. Monthly recurring revenue, hey! However, I do believe that the cons outweigh the pros in this scenario, and that we need to find a way to think about this differently. And quite frankly, I've seen the pendulum swinging the other direction, because a lot of folks who jump ship from human teachers, human coaches, human inputs, human like sources of support to AI are now shifting back. And this is especially the case with services like copywriters. A lot of people are shifting back now because they recognized that even though the copy sounded great that AI produced, even though they were using other people's frameworks and other people's tools and the copy sounded awesome, they used it and it did not convert. I was talking to another business friend recently and she was telling me like several of her clients have come back to her and said, hey, I used AI. It didn't work. My launch did not go well. And so I need your help again. And it's not like these clients, some of them are on the extreme of like, do not use AI in this because we hate what it has produced for us in the past. And some of them are like, it's not that you can't use AI, but I really need your eyes and your brain on this process. And I think that the pendulum is swinging the other direction because they're realizing they have lost the ability they have lost that guardrail, that sort of QA check, the quality assurance check of, is this good or not? Because they don't have the expertise to evaluate whether this is good or not because they never learned the skill. They didn't learn the methodology. They didn't learn the framework. So they don't know how to evaluate it, and they don't know how to reproduce it, and they don't know how to edit it, edit the copy that they get. And so it's like, okay, it didn't perform. And now I'm like lost at sea because there's nothing I can do. I can't tell if it's good or not. I don't know how to fix it, and I can't write it on my own. That's not the situation that we want to put our people in. And I think the absolute worst thing about this is that folks are losing trust in their own judgment because they are feeling like they don't have the capability to do the thing. And done for you work is its own kind of dependence, I think. But at the very least, it's a human relationship. Because folks, there are folks who do not know how to do these things and hire done for you providers. I offer done for you packages. And so I mean, the majority of my work is done for you, quite frankly. So I do think that the learning piece is also removed within a done for you scenario. However, I also recognize that people are willingly choosing that, right? They're willingly saying, I'm not going to take the time to learn this. Let me hire somebody to do it for me. If they don't know, a lot of times people hire done for you and they do know how to do the thing. They just don't have the time and capacity to do it themselves, right? So that's a different scenario where the learning has not been removed. Great. But other scenarios are definitely the case where people do not know how to do the thing themselves. They have chosen not to learn how to do it, taken on that risk of not knowing how to do it without hiring, and decided to invest in hiring support. But with a tool, people don't realize that they're opting out of that learning. They didn't choose to opt out of that learning. We actually aren't giving them a choice because we're not upfront saying, hey, we're not, this is not like in the welcome video. Hey guys, you can take two tracks here. You can either learn the thing and use the tool, or you can skip the learning and do the tool. I haven't heard anybody say that. I may be wrong. If that's you, please let me know in the comments. Right? And so I think people are getting discouraged and frustrated with their lack of ability to produce results and frustrated with their own judgment because they recognize that they can't trust these tools anymore. And it's a really hard place to be as someone who is dependent on these tools, as someone whose business, and I'm specifically speaking about folks who come to us who are service providers, business coaches, strategists here. But I mean, the same could be said for folks who teach like relationships, or folks who teach around health, or things like novel writing and grant writing. There's like a bunch of different ways that we can go here, right? Bottom line, the ability of our clients and students to get results is compromised by their dependence on our tools. And they didn't even realize that that is what they were signing up for. That I don't feel good about. I don't know about you, but I don't feel good about that. So what can we do? What do we do about this? I think we have to find ways to make learning fun and easy. Just like how we have put so much effort and energy into making the result easier to get to, faster to get to, and basically greater results from getting to it and using the tool to get to it. I think that we need to do the same for the learning process. I think we need to put learning back into the tools that we create and then make that learning process easier to understand, faster to understand, and more fun to engage with. Because a big part of this problem is that learning feels hard for people. And so they skip it. They skip the hard thing. The path of least resistance is to get to the result as fast as possible. And if I deem something irrelevant or unimportant to learn, I do not learn it. And it's not relevant or unimportant objectively. It's relevant or unimportant in the grand scheme and context of the result that I want to get to. The result is the most important thing, not the learning. And so I think what we have to do is re-engage our students and clients on the learning process. Now, this is where our instructional designers need to show up, y'all. If you are an instructional designer and you are not like leaning into this, bruh, wake up. There's money to be made. There are people to help out here because we need your help to design offers that don't just get our people to the result, but teach them how to get to that result themselves in a way that feels really good. We need to integrate that into our tools. I think we have an opportunity here. And there's evidence that it works, because another study, this one, a chess study that was done earlier this year, saw chess players with an unlimited on-demand access to AI only improving 30% in their playing of chess versus 64% improvement for those whose AI access was controlled and their usage was limited. So that actually saying, okay, even just saying you can only use this tool for a certain amount of credits causes people to fall back on their own brain and have to learn the stuff. Putting guardrails around AI inside of your offers, brilliant way to get us to actually think. And I say us because I am in offers with these tools. I definitely listen. I get it. I'm like all the other people. I will sometimes skip through things to get to the result. But when it matters, I know that I need to learn the thing. And so I think that for us who are in the position where we do have clients and students who come to us for specific results, and we teach methodologies and frameworks, or we have taught them in the past, I think we need to find better ways of teaching them. I think that we have an opportunity to make AI the coach, right? Like I talked about at the top of my video, where I'm walking the line between coach and consultant, where consultant hat, I recommend actions and I teach you, or rather I explain like, hey, this is why we're doing it, versus coach hat, I ask you questions. I prompt you. I help you get to the answer that you yourself know. There's a difference there, right? And I think if we can make AI the coach, the prompter, the encourager, the one that asks questions, we can get in ways that people actually want to engage with, like not in boring, annoying, why is this taking so long ways, but like fun, engaging ways that actually create motivation and momentum, ways that feel like they're progressing towards their goal. I think that could be really interesting and cool. Tool tips. Something as simple as a tooltip, like, I don't know about y'all, but if there's a tooltip beside it, I'll usually click because I want to know what it says. And when I say tooltip, I'm talking about the little circles with the question marks in them, or the exclamation mark, or sometimes it's a square as well. Like those little information boxes where you click on something and it explains something, right? Super helpful. Just something as simple as adding a tooltip can help folks to absorb the framework, the process, the methodology while they're actually creating the result with the tool. I also think even something like examples and having AI coach folks through examples, and even coaching folks to applying the process to their own situation. I think that can be really powerful, because when we provide AI with the frameworks, it's then flexible and really nimble and able to evaluate their answers. In most, like if we train it properly, it's 80% to 90% of the way there, and good enough to help them really start to understand how to apply this. Okay? And like I said at the top of this, like, or rather a couple minutes ago, our instructional designers need to step up. Bam, we need you. And if there's anybody teaching gamification, this is a great opportunity too. Because if we can figure out how to gamify our offers, bruh, if we can figure out how to make learning an extremely personalized process, I think that's when we win. And I know that like it's gonna take a bit more of some advancements in AI for us to do that, because right now personalization for every single student and client would be quite difficult and tedious. It's a lot of data to store. And for us who are business owners who are not quite at like multi-7 figures, 8 figures yet, being like expending the sort of effort, energy to code that and to really connect like all the data storage systems that we would need, all the management systems that we would need to have this personalization for every single person, that would be tricky at our level. Maybe one of the bigger entrepreneurs can work on this. But in terms of everyone, like little ways of gamifying processes, learning processes, we need that kind of thing. We need to make learning fun and engaging and really relevant again. Because when folks don't understand, when something feels hard, that's when they disengage. That's when they opt out, not realizing that they're forfeiting their ability to produce results in the long run. They're potentially jeopardizing their ability to create revenue without this tool. They're jeopardizing their ability to build successful relationships without this tool. They're jeopardizing their ability to maintain their health without this tool. That's not what we want for people. It's not what we want. It's not what I want. So I want to encourage us to think about this. Let's have a dialogue about it in the comments. I'm happy to talk in Instagram DMs as well, because I think it's important. I think it's important to realize the dependence that we are potentially creating and how we stop ourselves in our tracks and kind of rewind a little bit before we end up with a ton of students and clients who we can boast about in terms of results, but who are utterly dependent on us to create the results that they actually want. All right, y'all. Let me know what you think. I'm eager to have this conversation with more people. And yeah, that's it. That's what I wanted to say today. If you are in a situation where you are saying, Chelsea, I like what you've got to say about AI. I like what you've got to say about your like how you think about offers and tools and messaging and learning. And I have an offer that I need to relaunch, or I have an evergreen funnel that I need to improve. I'm happy to support you with that. My consultation hour is available. It's 50% off until tomorrow. It'll still be available after that. So whenever you watch this video, you can go ahead and grab that. The link is in the description box, so you can book an hour to talk to me, get my thoughts on what you need to do next, and decide how you can make your best step forward. All right. So I will either see you in the comments, my DMs, or maybe on a consultation hour. We'll see. And until next time, talk soon.